Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews. Reviews from a regular dude, where I do trailer reactions, I react to YouTube videos, I review YouTube channels. Occasionally, I'll review a movie, but really, I just do whatever the hell I want.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews. Reviews from just a regular dude down in the basement. Do you guys play video games? The only games I play are like on my phone, and it's just stuff to like kill a few minutes. I'll play solitaire or something like that. Nothing really big. But this is the top 5 scary horror games from 2020. So let's check this out.
Oh me, oh my. 2020 has been quite the interesting year in terms of media releases. Plenty of stuff has been delayed for understandable reasons, making pre-planned schedules fly out the window at incredible speeds. However, there's still been quite a fascinating run of excellent horror games. Many had been completed early in the year or managed to remain on schedule. Of course, indie games had an easier time doing this, but still, there's nothing quite like a quality horror game, whether it harkens back to simpler times or introduces all sorts of new scares you didn't see coming. Having some sway over what's going on in horror is always a blast, so why not take a look at some of the best examples from this year? Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to take a look at the top 5 scary horror games from 2020. If you're in the mood to binge some spooky stuff, make sure to check out our top 5 newest scary videos playlist right over here. Nice, let's get started. Coming in at number 5, we've got...
Help me out here for a minute before we get started. There was one horror game that I remember playing a little bit that was on the Wii when the Wii first came out, and it took place on a ship, and it was horrifying, but I can't remember the name of it. If you can remember the name of it, let me know. I know it was on the Wii, and I think it might have been on PlayStation also, but I cannot remember the name of it. It took place on a ship, and it had to do with these people getting infected and turning like into zombies and stuff like that. Had jump scares galore in it. It scared the crap out of me.
World of Horror. Let's start with something different. I'm not sure if there's anything out there like World of Horror. It's a 1-bit horror game that takes elements from all sorts of influential horror classics and blends them together in a truly strange RPG adventure. And it was made by a part-time Polish dentist. That's how you know it's something special. Technically, World of Horror has been playable since 2016, but the early access build dropped in 2020, and it should be fully playable on the PlayStation and Switch by the end of the year. You kick off the adventure by choosing one of 5 playable characters. Each person has a different view of the events that unfold, and the game can change quite a bit depending on who you choose. Strange and sinister happenings underpin the story, with each playthrough focusing on a different investigation. It almost feels like each playthrough unfolds similarly to reading a chapter from Fuan no Tane or PTSD Radio, or of course one of many Junji Ito one-shots. The influence of the latter is very pervasive here. The whole game feels like it jumps right out of Ito's mind. So if that's something you're interested in, World of Horror is for you. You run through the game, attempting to solve mysteries before the pervasive sense of doom becomes an overwhelming wave of doom. It's your character versus all sorts of horrid monsters, cursed items, and the eventual awakening of a Lovecraftian monstrosity that will destroy everything. To stay alive, you have to balance risk and reward. Do you fight a spooky monster, or do you run? Do you read the Necronomicon-style book, or do you burn it? How much stamina and reason have you been able to keep hold of? It almost works like a roguelike, with you learning new mechanics as you try and try again. Your character develops in unique ways depending on the choices you make, and you might end up much worse off at the end than when you started. Then again, you can hop right back in and try to make it through alive. Coming in at number 4, we've got Resident Evil 3.
Okay, my extent in video games was when I was growing up, like with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Dragon's Lair. I don't know if you remember that one. That was one of my favorite games ever. I played that game so much. Dragon's Lair was probably one of my favorite games. And then Pac-Man. I actually bought the record of Pac-Man Fever, and the only reason I bought the record was because on the sleeve it had the course that you should take to get through the 9th key, to get all the way through to the end. And so I studied it, and I remember going in there and I'd play for like 45 minutes, an hour on one quarter and get all the way through and finish the game. So I played that one a lot. But that was when I was a lot younger. I don't really have the patience for it anymore.
Remakes of classic survival horror games almost seem like an inevitability at this point. Many were made before the genre had a chance to develop, and their age does show. Not to say the OG Resident Evil games were bad, but they were definitely a little unpolished. Maybe that roughness added to the charm and the creepiness factor, but it is nice to play through a fully realized version. After the massive success of the Resident Evil 2 remake, of course they had to do it again for number 3. And like its predecessor, Resident Evil 3 takes elements from the original, but doesn't feel as though it needs to stick to that structure. In fact, 3 almost feels a little more like a zombie-fueled action game than a survival horror one. You take on the role of Jill Valentine as she desperately attempts to escape Raccoon City following an outbreak of T-virus. Survival requires quick reactions and a mind for puzzle solving. Plenty of exploration, too. While some famous locations from the original are left out, Raccoon City feels more alive than ever. Or more dead, I suppose, because most living things are missing in action. But there's all sorts of cool and creepy stuff to hotfoot your way through. It all looks great, too. Resident Evil 3 plays well and looks fantastic, but doesn't quite deliver on content. It's pretty short and doesn't do much to keep you coming back for more.
I'm sure to be enough for me.
Nemesis is more terrifying than ever after a modern console facelift, it isn't used in any way that evokes all that much fear. It's scary, but quick-time events aren't. Still, if Raccoon City's your thing, or you're thirsting for some tight zombie gameplay, Resident Evil 3 will satisfy. Coming in at number 3, we've got Someday You'll Return. For a game made by 2 people, this is an impressive psychological horror experience. The story is nuanced, and the visuals are engagingly atmospheric, and the scares are haunting. You've got to push through playing as an abusive jerk for most of it, though. You hop into the shoes of Daniel, a bad father, ex-husband, and all-around person. His daughter, Stella, has gone missing for the umpteenth time, and he's pissed. Like, no worry, no concern for her safety, just anger that she's disappeared again. You head into the woods to find her.
See, now these are the type of games that I think I would like, because you're getting into a story, you know, and you can follow the story and everything, or change the story. I think I'd like that.
And things take all sorts of mysterious turns. A younger version of Stella taunts you in a swamp. You come face to face with a horrid man-beast, you burn every spider you come across. There isn't really much in terms of gameplay. Most of Someday You'll Return is walking around in the woods, finding materials and potion ingredients to craft with, and sometimes some rock climbing. These are all serviceable, but are by no means where the game shines. In delivering an engrossing story and lots of dread, that's where the good stuff is. As the game progresses, the environments get creepier, and there are some really tense moments. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll leave it at that. Someday You'll Return is consistently creepy, unsettling, and interesting. If story-based horror is what you're looking for, then here it is. Coming in number 2, we've got The Last of Us Part 2. I wasn't sure if this game should have a place on the list, seeing as it's more action than horror and it's super AAA and everybody knows about it, but after considering the world it takes place in, I couldn't resist. Probably the biggest game of the year, The Last of Us Part 2 is a wicked ride. A lot of folks didn't think that The Last of Us was ever going to get a sequel. The last-gen Naughty Dog juggernaut was so universally loved, so self-contained in its storytelling, that it could have existed as its own thing forever, with an HD remaster dropping on every subsequent console. But somehow they topped themselves and put out an even more polished game with a story that really impacted a lot of folks. Sometimes it's a positive impact, sometimes it's negative. Just take a look at public opinion on the game to see how that played out. But by really fleshing out all sorts of characters, folks can get really invested in the stories.
Has anyone played that? Because it looks kind of like a ripoff of The Walking Dead a little bit.
That unfolds. And even though there are plenty of terrifying spore-based zombie monsters, humans are the real threat. Surprise, surprise. The horror comes from all sorts of places, from the brutal and bloody executions of the people who would get in Ellie's way, to the sneaky survival horror elements that crop up when you're faced with large groups of enemies, the realization that many of the characters you love or hate will be dead and gone by the end. The brutality is truly brutal and never in an over-the-top manner. These kills might as well be plucked from a guerrilla warfare instructional video. They're not cartoony. I'm sure I don't need to say too much more about Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2, but it definitely deserves a spot on this list. It's not pure horror though, so it couldn't quite make number 1. Crucify me as such. And coming in at number 1, we've got Carrion. Oh baby, this game is crazy. This is the kind of horror stuff I like to see, just totally out there and totally fresh. Probably kind of rotten too, but that's just all the flesh piling up. Most horror games put you in the shoes of a victim, attempting to survive whatever gauntlet of horrors the world is throwing at you. It works because people empathize with whoever's getting scared. However, what is more iconic, the monster or the prey? In most cases, we're gonna go with the former. That's what makes Carrion such a wicked cool horror game. You are no longer the victim, fleeing helplessly from danger. You are the danger, and boy are you dangerous. A mutated blob of flesh and blood.
Okay, now that looks like the video games I remember with the graphics and everything.
Blood escapes a research lab and immediately goes on a rampage. Its awful red tendrils reach out and grab at anything within range, consuming all. You can hide from folks that want to stop you before you get too big, taunting them with screeches and roars. You can squeeze through tight spots and destroy barriers meant to keep you at bay. It's a phenomenal genre flip, allowing players to become the abomination they so fear, and there really is nothing quite like Carrion. Hopefully your wallets aren't hurting too bad after this video. I mean, it's probably fine, right? You're paying for horrifying entertainment. It's enriching your brain. So what'd you think of the list? Have you played any of these already? Am I missing any blockbuster horror experiences from 2020? So far, anyway. What's your favorite horror game of the year? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your toastier ones.
Well, that was top 5 scary horror games from 2020. Okay, see, The Last of Us I'd like to do, and there was one other, I can't remember which one it was now. And that last one didn't look like really that much to me. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite horror game is. Have you played the Friday the 13th one that came out a couple years ago? What do you play any of the horror games or anything like that? Or are you like me and you're stuck with the Pac-Man and the Donkey Kong and Dragon's Lair and stuff like that? How about a joke? I got arrested at the airport last week. Apparently, security doesn't appreciate it when you call shotgun before boarding a plane.
Thank you, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hashtag Mean Gene, all that fun stuff. And if you like this video, tell all your friends, leave a comment down below. And if you didn't like it, then just shut up. And I will see you next time.